Oh, are we live now? Oh, hey guys. Welcome to Reverse the Verse. This is the May subscriber edition, special subscriber edition of Reverse the Verse. I'm your community manager, Jared Huckabee. If you've never watched Reverse the Verse before, Reverse the Verse is Cloud Imperium Games live stream with the fans. And once a month, we do a special edition for our subscribers where we take questions from our subscriber chat on the RSI website. So when we get to taking the questions, which will be real soon here, go ahead and submit your questions in that subscriber chat. First, we want to introduce our special panel of guests this week. To my immediate right is designer Calix Renault.
Hey, I was really enjoying our awkward start.
Yeah. Well, it's because we have a different setup than we normally do, so we can't see Hennessy's "You're live" signal anymore. So we just had to kind of guess. To his right is senior tech artist, Matt Intreri.
Howdy.
How you doing?
How y'all?
Star of one of the most watched ATV segments of all time.
Explosions.
And to the end there, last but certainly not least, designer Mr. Matt Sherman.
Hey everyone.
How you doing, Matt?
Good.
So why don't we take a few moments and tell people, who it is you are, what areas that you work on, and what you're working on currently, so they can try to shape their questions to that. We'll start with a Matt at the end there.
Okay, yeah, so I'm a technical designer here in the LA office. Pretty much I work on spaceships, their gameplay systems, and ship components. Just designing out some of the new ships that you guys will be flying. We've got the Reliant going hangar ready with 2.4, did some of the work on that, and then the upcoming Buccaneer sale for this coming Friday.
Now, what are some of the ships that you've been the specific designer for?
Those two specifically right now. So the Reliant, the Buccaneer, also some work on the Dragonfly, which we've announced. A few other ships that are still also in the works and just in the pipeline right now. So
cool. And Matt Intreri, our senior technical artist. What's a technical artist do?
Well, primarily we're focused on tools, optimization, and we do a lot of the setup on the ships as well. I've been working on the ships for a couple of years, and I've worked on every ship that we've produced. Mostly doing the damage, lighting, and various optimizations.
All right. And Calix?
I'm a technical designer here, and what I do tends to vary by the day. I'm incredibly ADHD, so I have to keep switching it up. Lately, I've been working on more systems stuff, but it's begun to swing back around towards ships with the Caterpillar and some other things that I've been working on. Before that, I was doing everything from damage to balance to doing a lot of the ship designs and the flight behaviors. Right now, I'm working on finishing up the Caterpillar support, but also working on the design for terminals, which we had a little glimpse of in the
Caterpillar ship shape from ATV last week? Yeah, I think it was last week. They all blurred together. So, because especially since I've been working on this week's. So that's a brief glimpse of the things that they work on. We'll be taking questions from our subscriber chat. You can go to robertspaceindustries.com and join the chat and join the subscribers tab. If you're a subscriber and you don't see the subscribers tab, you can choose from the more channels. Hey, we're hearing ourselves coming back through. So you can go and choose more channels and add the subscriber channel to yourself. Of course, that's only if you're a subscriber. And if you're considering being a subscriber, so you can ask us a question, you can choose subscribers from the main menu navigation at the top. So we've also staged some questions. So while we're collecting questions in our chat, also please preface your question with the word question. The capital letters surrounded by brackets. It'll help us pull it out. We've got a question from our forum thread where we staged a couple ahead of time. Right off the bat, hello, Matt, and Randy. We replaced Randy with Mr. Intrieri. So you've said hi to you.
No, we replaced Randy with Calix.
Oh, that's right.
Because Calix isn't named Matt.
Right.
Surprisingly, not named Matt.
Yeah.
After watching Ship Shape Caterpillar 2, I have to say the ship is looking great, and I can't wait to have more non-combat roles in the Protoverse. His question is, what kind of emerging gameplay are you three looking forward to while having to crew a larger ship like the Cat or the Carrack?
I mean, it's all the basic stuff. Like, all the stuff that sort of falls out of having these systems is going to be incredible to explore. But I'm just excited to touch the ship. Like, crawling around and checking out all the little nooks and crannies and all the bits that move around. That's what sort of gets me going.
Well, we were talking yesterday about playing Gyromite with the doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you'd be able to sort of control the flow of battle by trying to manipulate it through the terminal.
Yeah. While you're trying to repel boarders, you're up in the cockpit on a console, opening and closing doors, trying to trap boarders in with your security forces and stuff, so they can't progress through the ship.
Sure. Open airlock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Send them out into space.
Yeah.
Get those choke points going.
Yes. I also had to explain what Gyromite was, because I'm apparently much older than you are.
No, it's that few people, even in the NES era, played Gyromite because no one wanted to deal with the hassle of the ROB.
I love Gyromite.
PlayStation 2 was my first console, so I have no context for any of this.
All right. Our next question is from Bacon of War. He wants to know, how is the multi-source shield work coming along?
Actually, really well. So that, I actually want to say Sandy posted an image a couple weeks ago onto the main Facebook showing one of our programmers, Chad Zamzow. He's been doing a lot of work getting the back-end tech that we need to get the shield pooling up and running. So we've got some really cool stuff in the works for that, with just making shield management involved, and not just, okay, I'm just pushing it to this face, but the trade-offs and the consequences of reinforcing a shield, of letting a side get weak, of how much power management you're doing to keep the shield values at optimal levels. So
the moment to moment is a little bit more meaningful.
Yeah.
The amount of time that you spend at any given shield priority can drastically affect the outcome because of the different weights on how things refill, on how much health it takes, how much health it has, and how much damage it takes accordingly. So it makes those split-second decisions much more important than they used to be.
Yeah.
And now that's also further supported by the ability to make those deeper loadout decisions, because now that you don't have just the one shield generator to the one shield, then we can have a lot more interaction between the components on that.
And visually speaking, we're going to move away from the kind of blobby-looking shield and more to a form-fitted shield, and we're changing the way we're implementing shields in general. Instead of using these shield meshes all around, we're going to use the collision that's already there and kind of like push that out, and then create the shape of the ship from those collisions that we already have in place. So that's coming in the next month.
Gotcha. He had a follow-up question. Will burning and other visual effects be added to ship damage?
We already can do a lot of that kind of burning and effects work. So when something detaches, it can trigger the effects to play, and we can add like fire and smoke and things onto the debris. We definitely want that vision of the Titanic, breaking apart, and like the fire and the debris falling out. So that's where I'm always trying to push towards.
We've been talking about driving similar behaviors in the actual flow of damage, where your component could reach a critical level of damage that isn't so critical that it explodes, where it's actively taking damage over time. You need to shut it off or cycle your systems to address that. So we're beginning to look at how we might actually implement the concept of having fire, but we're doing that in sort of a controlled approach, because Star Citizen is big, and just introducing something like that can get crazy. So we're looking at it more in terms of like, how does the broad scale of heat lead to the behaviors that we want to see in ship destruction, either explosion or failure, or possibly the fire state.
Okay. All right, looking at some of the questions, want to give a couple guidelines here, guys. Obviously, no when questions. When is this going to come out? When is that going to come out? These aren't the guys to talk about that. Second, networking questions or programming questions. That's for network engineers and programmers. These guys are designers and a tech artist. And third, for Buccaneer specific questions, we have ATV tomorrow, which is dedicated fully to the Buccaneer. Both primary segments are dedicated to both the design and the art of the Buccaneer. So we're gonna save Buccaneer questions for ATV tomorrow, and then the following Q&As that we always do for every concept sale. So if you're wondering why you're asking questions related to those things and I'm not asking them, that's why, or yes. I don't know if you guys are you guys involved in the localized physics grids at all? That's more
Oh, yeah.
program.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. I mean,
Hey.
for setting up any of our ships, especially anything with an interior now, I mean, making sure that we get the physics grid in there, that we have a high enough detail of the grid geo inside that we can line it up to the ship, but not so over detailed that it starts becoming problematic in terms of performance and gameplay.
Gotcha. We have a person, Sohonor Nalthane. Sorry, guys. I shouldn't even try to say your names. How hard has the localized physics been while at the same time trying to emulate space, such as explosive decompression or even a ship rapidly speeding up or speeding down?
Certainly, we've had problems with the transitions between different physics areas, like going from open space into the back of a ship, and we've kind of conquered some of that. There's a lot of work that has yet to be done, and we have some temporary code in place that's making it work, but we know there's a solution that's going to make it much better in the future.
Yeah. The localized physics grid specifically stops that interaction from happening. Like, the whole point of it is that I want to be standing on a ship which itself is moving through the universe. So implementing it in this way specifically breaks that connection. And so in the specific cases where we want there to be a connection, where you want to have momentum carried through the space, where you want to have physics interaction here interact also in the interior physics grid, those things have to be now built in specifically because that way they can behave the way we want them to and not the way that whatever the physics code might believe they might work, which tends to be much more chaotic.
It's pretty challenging making flying FPS levels through a larger space level.
Yeah.
And then being able to transition out of one into the bigger one and then into somebody else's. And it's probably one of the most ambitious aspects of this game. I'm constantly amazed at our progress with it.
Well, even just on the PTU right now, I was kind of blown away Monday getting in and seeing the handful of videos of people who did figure out a clean, functional way to pull the Merlin inside the back of the Starfarer. And that's I mean, dead on what it would have to be, because no, you can't just fly it in nose first because of how the wings handle on that. And getting it in cleanly, getting the door shut cleanly, getting it landed and seated cleanly. I mean, you can already see the improvements to the physics grid, because in the live version, you try and do that in, say, a Constellation. Well, no ship that you could sort of cram in there is going to sit cleanly on the floor. So as soon as you go into quantum, it detaches, it flips back, it blows your ship up. But now with the scope and the size of the grid in the Starfarer, it's like, okay, well, this is big enough now. This is almost safe enough now for how it's compartmentalized to let you bring that ship in and have it sit down cleanly. Doesn't mean you'll get 20 of those Merlins in there, but being able to pull a couple of those things in, we definitely do want to make sure that works, and it has to play nice with the physics grid, or you blow up when you go to quantum.
I'll believe you can't fit 20 Merlins in there when I see it.
Okay, you can't fit 20 Merlins in that you can cleanly fly out without at least 12 of them exploding.
As for like the explosive decompression, that's another thing that has to be specifically built. But I've actually seen some designs being worked on that seem like pretty well featured. Those are still in the design phase, so and I'm not directly involved with it, so there's no telling how that'll shake out. But I know that we want to have atmosphere.
Yeah. We've seen the very beginnings of it in the pipe system preview that we had on the ATV Fast Forward the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Shooting out the glass and watching all the cargo that's in that room fly out and stuff. So
I think CryEngine has some kind of object that can actually pull along a stream. So we're kind of planning on putting those at the airlock areas, and like if you breach it, it'll just kind of suck in what's in this like cone, and so we should get that nice effect.
gotcha. Hey, next question is probably for Matt. Griff Spectre Galmore would like to know more information about the Mako and how we plan to implement its broadcasting, its filming, any of that gameplay. Do we have a plan in place yet? Or are we still figuring that out?
So we're still figuring out a lot of stuff for the Mako. When that one was originally pitched and I was working on that, it was even to me, I was like, okay, this is a little bit lofty, but I mean, just the community interaction that you guys have brought to us, it's something that we want to make sure, our streamers and our players have that kind of hook and that kind of opportunity for gameplay. So it's very much going to be like a layered on system. It won't be the full scope of what everyone's probably hoping for, and even what I'm kind of hoping for it to be, even 5 years out from launch type of gameplay opportunities. But at least in the very bare bones setup of it, we want to make sure that if you're the co-pilot on a Reliant Mako, you're looking through that camera, you have this just great unimpeded view. We want to make sure you won't have any HUD in the way, so you can just capture full frame image of whatever you're pointing at, whatever you're looking at trying to do some better things to make sure you get enough zoom and distance so that you don't have to put your ship right in the middle of a firefight to get a couple good images. But then the long term is just to sort of layer on everything else that we can do with that and make compelling. So some aspects of info running are even going to bleed into the news service aspect, where just identifying who was in what system and when, like tracking people's movements, tracking general intelligence about what is going on in a system. And making that another aspect where it's like, okay, hey, this reporter now just saw you effectively commit a war crime. Do you try and go chase them down? What if they get that back to the right news service in time? But a lot of these things are still those layered on gameplay features that we need to build on the pieces that we know we can do really well now, and then just slowly keep moving forward and adding newer layers on top of that to really flesh something out.
Basically, what the core of the entire Star Citizen experience is, build it right in front of the people.
Yeah.
So they'll see an early version, then it will continue to iterate.
Yeah.
It's been kind of our philosophy all along is we know where we want to go, but we know the tech that we have currently to build it. So we'll put in the initial versions and then build on that over time as new tech comes in.
Gotcha. All right, next question by John Smallberries. Definitely know how to pronounce that. Nice Buckaroo Banzai reference, John. Hi, everyone. I have a question regarding explosions. Ship explosions don't inherit the ship velocity and as a result tend to hang in front of the attacker like a deadly wall of, death fire. Any chance pursuit kills can be a little less risky. Also, I was wondering if explosions will take into consideration the loadout of the exploding ship.
You might be talking about we have an issue with debris right now where it no longer has physics when it detaches from the ship in the current build. It's going to be part of the Item 2.0 upgrade that we're currently in progress on. So we will get physics back on the debris items so they won't hang in space. But I think right now you can just pass right through those debris items and they won't kill you. But as for an explosion effect, leaving the ship leaving the explosion behind, there's ways we can attach those effects to stay with the ship as those effects fire. So we'll be looking at reviewing effects. So part of what I'm doing right now is assessing our whole fleet of ships, all 30 odd ships that are out there flying right now, and looking at all the missing pieces of tech that can be improved, and just making sure everything is set up in the same way. And as each new piece of code gets written from engineering, we have to go back and kind of redo a lot of the ships. And as you can imagine, like as ships get added, that iteration through the entire fleet becomes a little longer each time. So.
And for the second part about the different components, we're now tying explosions into the individual components and such now, right?
We are starting to do that. Again, item 2.0 is going to allow us to do the radial damage with effects on nearby components, and then through power pipes and overheating, and then kind of a buildup. And that initial that cool video we showed a while back with the explosion, we're still working toward that as our visual and the feel. So you're going to have time to repair during a critical phase of the ship and bring it back down to a nominal level where you,
The goal is that that's not just the death mask. That's the result of the systems behaving according to the situation you put it in. The damage that you took, the amount of damage, the type of damage, what you've done about it since then is what leads to that behavior. So,
and also just how you're running your ship, where even
Yeah.
without damage, if you're running it, basically redlining everything, well,
overclocking.
yeah, you're gonna wear your ship down and all your stuff down faster because you're just pushing it so much harder than it's safely rated for. So
You should also be able to equip your ship with safer components.
yeah,
Generally, probably a lower output, but will be less likely to explode, or if it does explode, will probably be less devastating to your ship.
yep.
These are all choices you can make.
So yet another thing that item 2.0 will allow us to do in the future.
Yeah.
So not stuff that you're going to see, front facing in 2.4. It's 2.4. One of the bigger things with 2.4 is that item port system. It's a under the hood implementation that's going to allow us to build out everything from components to explosions to. It affects so many aspects of the game.
Yeah.
It's one of the more exciting aspects of 2.4.
Yeah.
So cool. I had a question right there. Ooh, how about a flight model question? I like those flight model questions.
Well, I usually do. I haven't been working on it directly recently, so I don't
Gotcha.
have any insight
Gotcha.
at the moment.
All right. Well, we'll pass on the flight model question. When we get John Pritchett in here, again, we'll do flight model questions.
Yeah.
If I end up
Okay.
working on flight model more.
Okay, Michael S. I'm going to refactor this, I think. All right. Why can big ships be pushed around so easily by smaller ships?
yeah. So our physics doesn't need a little work. When
Wait, are you
things
saying we're not done?
when things blow up, it's like paper mache sometimes, and it just troubles me. So we're looking at those kinds of things, and hopefully we can get to that sooner than later. But
So you're saying those glaives that come down and pick up a constellation and pile drive it off the platform? That's not supposed to be like that?
and launching a human, like I love the EVA guys, and they launch themselves at the ship and just come in and just blow it up
Yes.
with themselves. That's so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely want the most realistic physics as we can. We're just in a transition period with the tech, so the actual physics is taking a backseat to item 2.0 and what that will bring, which is not only
Bring a lot of
like different
crazy.
types of interactivity, it's also networking, sync, but it also has a lot to do with optimization. One thing we found was the interior of the ship needs to be separate from the exterior of the ship, but the way CryEngine works is you have to, if you want to interact with the inside, it has to be part of the outside. So I won't go into more detail with that, but it's when we can truly separate the interior from the exterior with item 2.0, we'll be able to call out a lot of the geometry that you're seeing or you're drawing from a distance, and then therefore you'll have better performance. So we're looking forward to that.
Gotcha. T Journey asked a question that I can't answer today, but I'm gonna read it and say tune in on Friday because I'd like to see the answer to this. He asks, will the Million Mile High Club and other player-owned properties be getting the port modification system? I'm gonna find out that answer and tune in Friday. I should have the answer for you by then because I'm curious.
Exciting.
I would think so. The hangar it uses the port modification system, so I just don't want to say yes without talking to somebody. Because I don't know the answer to that.
The new port modification system is so cool. I love it.
Yeah. It's definitely something that we've needed, and like you've been saying, the backbone that it lays for the item 2.0 system it's really hard to describe just how many improvements that whole overhaul is going to be bringing for us. I mean, I know we were trying to get more of the components out earlier this year with like 2.1 and 2.2, but then we sort of had to take a step back and see like, hey, we're pushing these things out, and the gameplay hasn't changed enough to really warrant that. So let's really dive in to make that gameplay what we want it to be, and then rip the Band-Aid off all the old stuff at once and just put it out there as soon as it's ready.
Shingara asks, what is going on with the Star G? Is the interior a placeholder for testing, much like the Aquila, or are we getting what we have now, which is a missed ship, yet near nothing to do with Aegis? I'm going to answer that one, actually, if you guys don't mind. The Starfarer Gemini is still the Starfarer. Aegis buys the Starfarer from MISC and then retrofits it for military use. That's a switch out of components and stuff, the bigger centerline thruster stuff, but they don't redesign the ship. So that's why it looks very much the same. It's when you're buying something from MISC and you're repurposing it for the military, it's not about making it prettier, it's not about changing it fundamentally. It's more a utilitarian, change out of components and certain aspects for military use, the increased armor and stuff like that. So you're not going to see a big visual difference, because why would they spend that time? That's not necessary. The military is not interested in having the Aegis name plastered all over the things. It makes more sense. I had a long conversation with John Crew, which is why I'm answering this one. It just makes more sense for Immersion and whatnot that they would just buy it, change out the parts that they want, retrofit it a bit, and sell it to the military. So that's why the Star G is like it is. And I like it. I like it a lot. Breebase1 asks, can you tell us a little about the plan for optimization? What's next on the list? What's the biggest challenge? How quickly do you think we'll be able to get the PU into shape?
Optimization is we just finished a full pass of all ships, adding new level of detail meshes. You might see some ugly meshes out there. They switch a little too fast right now, but that is in, so everything should LOD and be visible in game and be fairly optimal. Right now, there's further improvements we're going to make, which is material ID reduction and combining meshes at a distance, so there's fewer meshes to draw. So we've done a lot of that already as well. The big thing is, again, the interior needs to be separate from the exterior in order to properly cull the entire thing out, because what you have right now is these little joysticks. They're so dense, and then you're drawing it while you're still looking at the ship. It's from the outside, because the joystick is interactive, and therefore, due to base CryEngine, we needed to have it as part of the exterior. As soon as item 2.0 is, then we can separate it, and then we'll have proper culling and a lot less to draw than we currently are.
Yeah. Another big thing just to keep in mind with optimization in general is while we're constantly making performance improvements, it's not really a one-shot solution to fix everything, especially while we're still building out all the game assets, because we can optimize for what we have now, but while we're still adding more ships, we're going to be adding more landing sites, space stations, planets. Once planets, their surfaces, and all the new objects that are associated with those go in, as you keep increasing that load, what you need to consider for optimization also keeps changing. So it's not something that we'll have a one and done solution for, but it's absolutely something that's worked on patch to patch.
And we're actually looking at having a section devoted to optimization in the 2.4 release post that we do every time we release a new patch 2.3, 2.2, we do a big old post about what's involved and whatnot. And I know we got some guys actually writing up a bit about the process of optimization. So no promises, but we're working on that, and hopefully that'll be in the post by the time 2.4 is ready to go live. All right, next question is from CIG Ben Lesnick. CIG Ben Lesnick.
Who's that?
Question: if one Jared leaves the Jared station traveling towards Jared City at 350 miles per hour, and a second Jared leaves another Jared station traveling in the same direction at 288 miles per hour, how many Jared?
Both Jareds die.
Purple, I think.
Yes.
I agree with these.
Uh,
I mean, I didn't check my math there, but
couple questions on Organization 2.0. These aren't the guys for that, but tune in on Friday. We usually answer that question every Friday, Reverse the Verse. So that's a common question that comes up a lot. Tarkaros has a question. Is the plan for most or all large ships to be made with FPS in mind? Many of us do not want flying FPS levels, but real starships.
Well, it is part of the gameplay, so the potential for FPS is everywhere, and we have to kind of allow for that because different people have different play styles too, and you want to board a ship and take it over by force. That's part of our gameplay. If you want to avoid that, then don't hang out with pirates.
And you also need to have things built in to help you repel those borders and stuff like we were talking about, the gyromite thing, door control and stuff.
Coming
like
at it from a perspective of FPS levels, like, okay, there's an element of that is about supporting the FPS gameplay, but there's also the element of just determining what it's like to move through the ship. And what's realistic for actual life isn't really that realistic for game space because you don't interact with that space the same way. You don't treat the same distances in the same way. Like if you model out a room 1-to-1 and put it in CryEngine and then walk around, it will feel very cramped. It will feel very different from how it actually feels to be in that space. So you can't think about it in the same way of like just we build out a blueprint like architecture and then expect it to actually work. You have to actually take into account the distances at which players interact with things, the field of view that's available, the walking speed. These things all come into account in addition to the potential that somebody could be shooting at you.
Yeah, when we say a flying FPS level in space, I'm talking about the technology. It's that technology, not that we've designed an FPS level that's meant to go around. I would say FPS is a consideration, but it is not the driving force behind your interior white box.
It's always about what makes sense for the ship first.
Yes.
And then only after that is it a question of how do we make this nicer for shooting.
Yeah, we wouldn't add a wall to impede like a going down a hallway just so you could peek around and shoot, because you want to still have traversal from one side of the ship to the other really smoothly.
The really apropos example would be the Caterpillar, right, which we just had the deep dive about, and that did include a consideration for FPS, where we moved the catwalk over to one side, and that helps you have visibility on the people moving through your ship. It gives you, the crossfire if you find yourself in that position. And it doesn't really cost you that much in terms of cargo, because we do still allow you to fill that space because you have the catwalk, which can't be included by cargo. So you still have a way to get through the ship.
I even think it can open up a little bit more opportunities, just because the tractor beam setup that you had on it, where now instead of having to worry about pulling a piece of cargo or some object into the ship and having it run up to that center catwalk in the middle of the hull, now it's all the way to the opposing side of where the cargo would be loaded in by the tractor beam, so you do get a much better just clearance room for bringing things into the ship, for rearranging the cargo into your ship and making sure it all fits, as opposed to having that blocker right in the middle of the ship.
Altered Perception asked a question that was asked of me last Friday, and I said I would find out. And now that Kalis is here, I can find out now. For the Caterpillar with the cargo and stuff, can you stack cargo along the center corridor? So you can block off your entire egress and just use
you
the...
can block off that door because you still have access to the whole ship through the
catwalk. That's one of the purposes of the catwalk then.
Yeah.
So you can fill up the entire cargo module, front to back, side to side.
I mean, good luck getting anything out of it.
Yeah.
But as long as you are capable of doing it, it happens. Yeah.
Cool. Do, 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 do.
I expect we'll probably see plenty of people doing, your tower defense mazes.
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
That's cool.
Also in the Caterpillar ship shape we did, Dax asked, we saw some early tractor beam work. Has that progressed any, or how do you see us using the tractor beam in game?
The tractor beam is sort of fundamentally in flux at the moment because we're playing around with a couple of different approaches of a single object push pull, having a force, having a point of attraction. There's prototyping to be done, and the work in the Caterpillar was more to be like, does this feel like a space where I feel like I have control over the dot moving around space? And so I felt like I had a pretty decent view of the ship to make that call. But the actual tractor beam design is still something that's being built out, because that also takes into account some of the some considerations in Austin with Tony Zarobek. I know has a lot of desire to sort of see that system move forward. So
Cool.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When we're moving cargo from like outside the Caterpillar to the inside, how are we placing it inside, or like what's the idea there? Like we're stacking it, or is there some kind of what's that?
Grabby hands.
well, grabby hands is one of the ways. There's actually the cargo design has a lot of opportunities for aggregation. The idea isn't go to the beach and grab one, drop a sand and bring it back and just keep making trips. But I want to go over there and lump everything together using the cargo jack, the pallets, potentially using the tractor beam as well. We had a couple other proposals for ways to bind multiple groups of cargo together so they can be moved as one, and then you would sort of slide in there as a single unit, and then take smaller objects and fill in the remaining spaces. It's not what's interesting about cargo management is the plan, not the action. Like walking back and forth between carrying things is not interesting. What is interesting is having the tactile element of manipulating something directly, and having the higher macro level of how does this fit into this space that I'm designing now with the cargo. So in order to alleviate that middle step, you want to sort of group things together. You've made your plan for this. Now it's just move the one time.
Like packing a car for a long family road trip.
If you have really cool equipment, my long family road trips are never so well planned. It's a mess from start to finish.
Let's see. Brian F. has a question. Will there be times when a ship will be destroyed where it is not the result of an explosion? Basically, will ship disablement be more likely than destruction?
I mean, that ties back into what we're talking about. The goal is...
That's why I asked.
Clever. The goal is to have it so that these behaviors, again, are driven by the system. But that also means that if you're able to make intentional decisions about what you're targeting, you're able to drive specific kinds of behaviors. So if you're up against somebody who runs a hot power plant and you want them to just explode, that's a pretty good choice. If you want them to not explode, you're going to be wanting to avoid shooting that spot. And I think that's actually one of the things that's really cool about it, is that what your goal is in this conflict has a lot to do with how you're going about it, because the systems are just going to react to what you do.
Yeah, but it'll be the skilled player who can disable a ship and take the ship and cargo intact.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even then, even with disabling a ship, what a lot of this new system will allow for is a much more hard disable, where it's not like a temporary disable, but also something where it's not just going to be rampant ship inflation of, oh, cool, I stopped your power plant for 5 minutes, boarded you, killed these guys, and now I'm just taking your ship outright. It'd be more like, well, no, we can fry that power plant, and the ship is still just a dead husk ready to be salvaged, but the people inside, some of the other components inside, some of the other systems inside could still be up and running And so you can get some nice intact parts out of that, but not just, it won't always just be a free ship haul for disabling someone.
But it will be sometimes, but not
Yes.
always. That's
Yeah.
where it gets like really tricky to sort of describe, because if you go at it with like the lightest possible touch, then it's potentially possible to put that power plant, even the one that can explode, into a position where it is disabled, not destroyed, and within range of being field repaired back into working condition. You know, depending on the situation, that could be a really, really narrow window. Perfectly possible to happen. And given the way that things are going on the PU, anything possible will happen. So,
Lamac asks, are there any plans to add labels to the item ports? And are the item ports going to become more generic, i.e. if it fits, it sits?
Oh yeah, we have a full menu system for our item port. So now like it'll pop up. I don't know if it's been.
Yeah, you are seeing the earliest, iteration of the item port system. There are plans for it that go through 2.5, 2.6, 2.7, and I don't see it stopping. The item port system is so important to everything that Star Citizen. We'll just keep adding it and building it out and refining it as we continue to build Star Citizen.
And we really think of the ships now as a collection of parts instead of as one big thing with attachments. It's like it's all one part or multiple parts.
Although even with that old term of if it fits, it sits, that's still, it's not a absolute truth, just because there's always going to be some level of technical limitations and paring down and abstraction that's needed to make sure that the gameplay stays fun. I mean, it's why not every ship just gets to magically be a pocket carrier, but there will still be tons of room for what you'll be able to do inside of the space and what's allowed and accessible inside of those spaces. Just it won't be like you're building your house in The Sims where you get absolute control over everything, or like a lot of the house building in some other MMOs, but still
just baby wallet.
Yeah, I mean, there's still just going to be a load of options for what you can do.
All right, Aiden Arash asks, hello guys, simple question. Is there any word on what other ships will be on sale with the Buccaneer? The Buccaneer sale is just for the Buccaneer. It's the Buccaneer concept sale. We'll be releasing the Buccaneer upon the community. So that's what's for sale with the Buccaneer.
The Buccaneer will be
The
unleashed.
Buccaneer will be unleashed. I'm excited about it. I really like that ship. I'm a sucker for Drake though. I really like. I'm a big proponent of the used future. Blade Runner more than Minority Report. I hated Minority Report. Everything was too clean and shiny. I was like,
Yeah.
Who wants
Future
that?
flawed
Who wants
versus
that?
future perfect.
Mr. Voltog asks a pretty common question since that ship shape. How big has the Caterpillar actually become now that it is advanced?
Yeah,
This big?
I
This big?
don't remember offhand. I'm pretty sure we passed 100 meters. I think we're at 107 meters, but I might be making that up. I really feel
huge.
like I'm remembering that from a conversation with Elwin, because it's like we also, the way that we're building it out made each of the modules a little bit thicker. So we gained a few meters there.
I think it was over 100 with the door folded out on the nose.
Yeah, I think it's like 100, nearing 110 meters.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big ship.
It's giant.
How many constellations is that end to end? Like, or
At least
or
two.
some other ship? Like, yeah, at least a couple.
I haven't had it fully intact. I pulled it apart for them. But I mean, you can see it in the ship shape. The front of the Caterpillar at its current size, give or take a few meters, is right next to where that Freelancer is, and the back is the floating engine behind the back walkway. So it'll go all the way back to that engine. So it's, what is that, like four
You're
Freelancers?
absolutely no help.
Four Freelancers?
Yeah.
Everything you're saying right now is going to generate posts and threads that I will have to deal with next week.
It's a big ship.
It's big. And then it still has to be built out in CryEngine. So that's really when we know.
Yeah.
Is when it gets fully built in CryEngine, that's when we know.
Well,
Okay,
I'll remind me to get you the number so that you can respond to
Okay.
those posts.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, and that still won't be, and the numbers he gave me still won't be the absolute final numbers until it's built out, until we've been running around inside it, and the physical thing, that's
Art
when
is
we'll
actually
know.
complete.
Yeah, that's when we know. All right, Deadweight asks, can you talk a little bit about Drake ease of repair and durability? How will this play out in the PU? Is there an advantage to being repaired with common materials when traveling far out beyond civilization?
So, big thing with that is just making sure that whatever components are come stock on a Drake ship, and also, even into the larger ships like the Caterpillar, wherever we stow these components and have to put the panel access to make sure that it's very easy to understand. Okay, in the engine room of the Caterpillar, everything that you need to ensure propulsion, you're going to have some way to affect that from that one room. You aren't going to have to go running around from like an engine room to a shield room to a computer room or anything like that. Onto the smaller ships, it's just making sure that the idea is you should be able to just pop the hood once and have access to 80-90% of the parts that you're going to have to work on, as opposed to having 5-6 different panels covering up the different parts.
Yeah, the Drake approach tends to be like everything's exposed and it's out there. But
Yeah.
I think this also ties into some of the work that you've been doing on the component definitions, because certain components will, like the difference between a high class component, it might be the Jaguar, like really good performance, but don't hit it with anything.
Yeah. Don't look at it wrong.
Whereas you could have extremely high durability, relatively lower performance, and these you're more familiar with that system. But
Yeah, it's the idea. People who have a lot of classic cars may understand this. Where if you're taking care of your car, even if it's not the most powerful thing, you're able to get. I mean, I've heard of Honda Civics with like 300,000+ miles on it. Most cars, you get about 100,000 before it starts shaking a bit, and so it's just having that built to last kind of thing, just easy access, and not an overcomplicated mechanism. Like it's not some overly ornate engine or shield generator or power plant that'll ever be in a Drake ship. It's going to be what it needs to function for what that function is made for. That doesn't sound confusing enough.
And repair is going to be tied in with reclaiming quite a bit, because we're going to need these resources that you're gathering. We're talking about stripping, the hull off of derelict ships, and you gain those materials to then craft new components to or subcomponents to shove into like a fuse. You make a fuse or something. I mean, this is like our design doc right now, so we're not in the implementation phase, but our hope is to have some gameplay where it's really fun to to put these fuses in and like make it work again. Maybe even think like a BioShock mini game or something. I don't know, but like
the pipes.
the pipes. Yeah,
It won't be pipes,
you
but
know.
there'll be something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, absolutely, the subcomponents are going to be a huge part of that, for also, tuning and adding some character to your individual loadout. So even if we both had the same ship with the exact same manufacturer and line of parts, I could have all of my subcomponents in those parts leaned, if I want to say, focus more on energy cooldowns, making sure all my systems are back up and replenishing faster, where yours may be just raw output, raw performance. You want the biggest number on the power plant output, the biggest number on the shield health output.
We've been looking to have those subcomponents tie directly into the behavior and the performance of that component. So
Yeah.
you'll have your base stats that is the item itself, but then when you put the subcomponents in, or you alter out the subcomponents that it already comes outfitted with, that will shift that balance a little bit. Like you can think of it like those are the points that you can move around on your stat sheet, but you can bolster it a little bit towards this performance or that. Depending on what you need. If you need more durability on this high performance, low durability component, a subcomponent might be a good way to do that. They're also the easiest as far as a field repair, because you just remove a thing and put a new thing in.
Yeah.
So that gives you an element of like that consumable for repair.
Okay. And once all those components, the new component system is in, how does that play into time to kill, time to death? Valcor wants to know. It seems very quickly to drop, very easy to drop a Starfarer or Constellation very quickly in the game right now.
Well, right now, every single sort of part of the ship has a health value. So if you like nail like a single part, you'll drive its health down, and then if that part dies, any further damage will transfer up. So that's like the current system. But once we get to the component damage system, where it's radial damage and pipes and all that, you'll see like more strategy involved in taking a ship down instead of just like, okay, just nail this one area until it explodes kind of situation.
They're saying that as it is right now in Crusader, the time to kill on things like the Starfarer, the Connie, and whatnot
I
are not
expect that to grow.
expected
yeah.
to grow.
Yeah,
so
it's
similar-
going to lengthen, yeah.
Similar to like before when we had only single seaters, I think the time to kill was even shorter. Like, it's not super useful for us to increase the time to kill to what it will be when the gameplay to support it isn't there, because that just leads to you repeating the same action over and over again without getting the reward for repeating the same action over and over again.
Yeah.
Because there's no gameplay for it to progress into the part where that would be, expanding out. So hopefully, as those things come online, as there's a thing that you would be doing during that time, then it makes sense to start increasing that.
Yeah, we'll be balancing the bigger multi-crew ships so that there is that time to repair, there is that time to do that gameplay to like survive, and so it's just not the interaction of repair isn't in yet, and we may not see that until we're focused more on the PU. Right now, we're obviously all on Squadron 42 and the ships that are involved in Squadron 42, mostly. So our attention is there, but when we get to just pure PU stuff, then that's really where the salvage and repair and all that stuff will be tuned to be fun.
We've been talking about ways to link that directly to the ship a bit better. For instance, currently our health is just assigned. Open the Hornet and I say that it has this much health, and that's how much health it now has. We're looking at tying the health to perhaps the mass, because it makes a certain kind of sense that the materials that are actually used on the ship could contribute to how much health it has. And what that means is that because we assign health on this sort of large scale, like I set the health of the Hornet to be something, versus if it's by mass, then this panel of the Hornet has this much mass because it's this subsection of the ship. And so that makes it so that as you lose parts of your ship, you're losing health more directly related to what's actually happening to your ship, because there's less abstraction between the health and the actual condition.
Gotcha. All right, without giving any dates or anything, can you talk about the rollout for the new component system, like what they can expect first, what you're working on first, and what you're working on next?
So I think the real big one that we want to get in front of you guys first is going to actually be the shield generators. To pair along with that, we've also been doing a lot of work with the power plants and coolers. So hopefully those three should all sort of go online around the same time, because they all have the most impact for driving your ship performance. Where it's like, okay, your shields are that refilling health. Your power is just how much can you ever do, and heat. Especially once we get the coolers really fleshed out gameplay wise, it's like, well, okay, this is sort of that limiter on stopping you from just overtaxing the ship at all times without consequence.
We are starting to implement item 2.0 items right now, and it's just there's like this base amount of code, and then now we're specializing into the various different disciplines of what components are and what they can do. But the base code is nearing completion.
Okay. Approportioner asks, you have modified certain software and tech in order to build Star Citizen. Is the machine for building the game complete? Is CryEngine complete? Or is building and modifying the machine a regular component towards completing Star Citizen?
Well, in any game, you're always, you have more tech to end with than you begin with, and it gets easier all the time. And we're doing things more correctly than we were, initially without the current tech. It's always a moving target, game development. So we're always trying to think ahead, but we're doing what we can now.
And there's always going to be tools optimization. I mean, just over the past year, we've really been working on this thing we've talked about, I think 1 or 2 times, called Data Forge, which helps us rapidly author items where before it would be, we were basically doing a lot of hand edit work, magically turning an Excel sheet into an actual game item, and this is going to be more of a front-facing collective spot where it's like, okay, here is all of one type of a component in the game, the high-level view of everything at once, a unified template to build everything out of as opposed to just sort of patchworking things together. And those kind of improvements are constantly ongoing. I mean, even just with building the ships, you've made a bunch of the tools that we use just for taking a ship from 3D Studio Max, defining just the basics of what the hardpoints can do, but then actually having a tool that will author out a functioning XML template for us to start hooking everything else up into and actually getting this ship flying. So
yeah, I mean that the toolbox that Matt built was a huge improvement on our time. It really was. I have plenty of all-nighters stacked to the time before that.
This guy, you don't even know.
It was
yeah.
He
it was a
didn't
rough
go
go.
home.
No, there were times I'd be coming into the office at 1 o'clock in the morning, and it'd be you and Zane,
Yeah.
and me. I'm like, why are you guys still here? It's like because our work never stops.
Well,
But I mean,
Calyx is also a wizard. You never know if he's left the office for the day or got in early, and you don't know how he managed to flow graph something, but he managed to flow graph something.
I've seen your photographs.
Yeah.
Your photographs are terrifying.
There are no rules. But that we, it comes across really at every level. Like we have an optimization coming from John Pritchett that's going to make it. I think it's almost done. I'm not sure, but it was very promising words. But the flight tuning, each ship took about a week because of everything involved, and most of that week was spent having it completely wrong. Because if it is not perfectly tuned to start with, it just fails in baffling ways. And once you get it to that point of perfection, now you have to ease it up a bit to get the behavior that you want, because now you have a perfectly flying ship that has no characteristics whatsoever, because you had to iron out all those characteristics just to get it working. So that process was very involved, very technical, and also was information held by like 3 people total. So if there was ever, like if someone got sick, a ship was thrown off because it was so complicated, so arcane, that it was impossible to work with together, much less to have something that got postponed for any length of time. That has been optimized to the point where it could take really, with only like a bare level of like introduction to how the systems are intended to work, it should take any of our designers a day to do a ship when we get those things online. And that's not just an improvement for the game, but like
A day, assuming you know exactly what it is you want to do. There's
yeah,
still all
yeah.
the
Once
exploration.
you've made those decisions,
Yeah, there's still
like,
all the exploration.
Before you would make a decision, it would be a week of painful toil before it could actually be a thing that happened.
Why don't the numbers support my decision-making process?
All right. With that wraps up this
it's
month's
been an
special subscriber edition RTV. Yeah, it went pretty quick.
Too quick.
Painless, like I said. I kept all the the hardball questions out of here. No, the questions I kept out were programming questions and stuff that you guys weren't involved in. Matt, Calyx.
Not
Had to
Matt.
mess it
Not
up.
Randy.
Not Matt.
Not Matt.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys. We'll be. Don't forget to tune into Around the Verse tomorrow for a whole wealth of Buccaneer information, and then we'll be right back here on Friday for our regular weekly edition of Reverse the Verse. So thanks for watching, and I don't know what camera we're on, but see you in the verse.
Cheers.